Welcome to Awkward Chats, where we take you on a hilarious journey behind the scenes of our travel adventures, and it can get a little awkward.
I'm Nacy.
And I'm Gary.
And together, we make up Lost Girl in Tomorrowland, our YouTube channel, where we go on fun adventures all across the U.S. But that wasn't enough. We wanted a place where we could talk about the real behind the scenes that goes into producing our channel.
Awkward Chats is your ticket to the real, unfiltered side of our travel adventures and a place where we can start your awkward conversations.
So buckle up and get ready for an adventure full of laughter, mishaps, and of course, awkward topics.
You can find new episodes every month, everywhere you get your podcast. This is Awkward Chats, too. All right, welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, welcome back to another episode of Awkward Chats.
If you're seeing us on YouTube at Lost Girl in Tomorrowland, definitely check out that page.
Yeah, and we're gonna get right into it.
Yeah, so what you been up to?
I have been busy working. Got some contracts lined up. I'm going to be busy for the next 2 months. Yeah, because I just got back from LA. That was fun. And got to go to downtown Disney and have dinner one night because I just ended up on that side of town. So it was my last day there, and it was rainy and cold, but I was like, I'm going to go.
I was really surprised you didn't buy an annual pass, honestly. I really thought you were going to do that there.
Yeah, we talked about it after I got back. And
Little magic key.
And Disneyland still has the reservation system in place, and I think it just really hinders the experience. And
yeah,
I just,
agree.
For one, I did not realize that they were for sale. I didn't even know, so I'm doing bad on the Disney. But two, I'm also surprised that they're still for sale because last year they were gone. I remember 2 years ago when they brought them back, we were on that drive and we were like, do we want to get it? And
yeah, we had a whole video about it.
We looked at it. Literally, we were going to buy them and then they were gone.
Yeah, well, that was part of it. But we also didn't like the reservation system. We weren't sure about it and we still don't like it. So that was one of our hesitancies for pulling the trigger then too.
Yeah, so I just, I think for the time being, especially with us moving, I think if we're going to buy a pass, I would buy Disney World because obviously we're going to be in World more than Land. And then maybe later this year, maybe around November or so, maybe we'll look at Land. Because, I mean, it's good for a year. And if we can split them up so that they're like 6 months apart from each other when we buy them, just kind of helps.
Yeah, that's an option. I mean, I think the biggest thing for us is if they get rid of the reservation system, then we'll do it because we don't want to have to plan that much in advance to make it sort of work with the schedule. And
I think they're hurting because that many people didn't renew, so they're up for grabs. Yeah. And Disney, you got to do better. You got to actually offer your pass holders, whatever you want to call them, some benefits too. Yeah, so that's kind of what I've been up to, purging, getting ready for this move that's coming up. What have you been up to, sir?
So this morning, we headed over to the Bellagio at 5 a.m. in the morning. Super early. That was,
early day. This was 2 days this week.
Yeah, 2 days. We actually went to the Bellagio twice this week at 5 a.m. Legit tip, a little bit off topic, but if you want to go see the Conservancy, definitely do it early in the morning. But we did the Conservancy table, which we had been wanting to do since we've gotten here. Mm-hmm. And especially after we went to the Bellagio a few times, we're like, we really want to try this out. And the thing was, dinners never really looked great. So we went with saddles.
I don't really know how to say it.
And it was good. It was a fascinating experience. The amount of apps that you get there, like this huge tray of
pastries,
salmon, tartare, is that, I believe, what you call it, or just salmon?
It's just salmon, like what you put on a lox bagel.
Yeah, I don't know if it was smoked though. It just tasted like salmon, so I feel like it was more like raw salmon, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it.
So they had that with capers, tomatoes, cucumbers. Then you had the danishes, like Nacy said, and then these sticky buns
and avocado toast.
What I don't understand about the danishes and sticky buns was why aren't they warmed up? Like, why aren't pastries supposed to be warm? Am I just under a misconception that pastries are supposed to be warm?
I love me a good warm cheese Danish. So.
Right. I don't understand. They make them there. It seems like, but at the same time, do they? If it's always so like lukewarm.
We also had like a ton of beverages. There was water, prosecco, orange juice, and I got a cappuccino.
Yep, and that was all included.
Yeah.
And then what Nacy talked about too, the other app was avocado toast, which was good. I liked it.
Yeah.
It was sort of like a guacamole almost on there because it had pico and stuff on it too. It was tasty. We actually have another piece of that downstairs on wheat bread. And then you get the...
Oh, yeah, and bagels and cream cheese.
Oh, yeah, we did get bagels and cream cheese because that's how we had the caviar, because there was caviar too, which we haven't mentioned.
Yeah, there was caviar. So that was just the first round.
That was weird. So caviar, I've never had caviar before, I don't think as an individual thing. I think I've had it on other stuff before, but I've never had just like a bowl of caviar and ice sitting next to me and the little ivory spoon. Should we have taken the ivory spoon? I feel like that was like...
Is that a souvenir? Kleptonacy.
It was weird. It's like a little dish of just caviar, and it was the red kind, which I believe is salmon caviar. But I'm not 100% sure.
And I know there's different kinds of caviar, and there's different levels of caviar, and there's like, I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know specifically. I'd have to look and see on the menu exactly what they stated that was, but it was interesting.
It was good. I mean, the caviar was okay. I don't feel like it added that much of a flavor. It just made things taste fishier, honestly. I felt like it made the salmon a little bit fishier tasting. It wasn't bad, but then popping the bubbles is really weird. So that's just really weird to me.
Yeah,
and I know Nacy didn't like the texture either.
I didn't like the texture because I like boba balls, and I don't know. There's something
very
about
tiny bubble balls, basically.
It's something about popping a fish egg in my mouth just doesn't do it for me. So that was round one.
And then we got to the main courses, which were, I got steak and eggs. Nacy got French toast.
And that French toast was good. It was like made on challah bread. They cut it the night before. They let it get crunchy.
And then I dip it in the goo and then make the,
it was
put it on
good.
the griddle.
Although I wish it would have came with a creme fraiche or like some kind of like whipped cream.
I feel like it was supposed to.
Versus syrup.
I think it was supposed to too.
Because it was very rich.
Because when I had it, because I've had it at Sadel's, you can get most of this stuff at Sadel's. It's just a regular menu. I've had the French toast, and I'm pretty sure it came with fruits, which you got, but then it also came with creme fraiche, and it came with syrup.
But you got steak and eggs.
But I got steak and eggs this time, and the steak was tasty. Really, really good. Tiny. It was a very tiny steak, but it was really tasty.
And yours came with eggs and hash browns.
Yep.
And yours also came with bagel or a pastry, but because we already had that, they gave us fruit.
Yeah, which is good. I like their strawberries. I like the blueberries. I like the raspberries. Everything fruit wise has been tasty with there too.
So we nibbled on that.
And then we had the grand finale, which is this nice piece of cheesecake.
Strawberry cheesecake.
Now, it's weird because you only get one piece of cheesecake,
but
and there's two people.
But it's a big honkin' piece.
Yeah, but you're also paying $160 a person.
Yeah.
So you got one piece of cheesecake. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying I like the cheesecake. It was great. I don't hate the cheesecake because it was really good. What I don't understand is that we're each paying $160 to sit here.
Yeah, we should both have our own big honkin' piece of cheesecake.
It ended up being like $320 a piece, $320 for both of us, I should say. And that's like we should have got our own piece of cheesecake.
Now, the other thing that we were discussing after our brunch, and that's what it was called. It was called brunch, which I wish that it would have had the lunch menu included in it.
Me too.
Which has like a BLT, it has salads. Because I had their salad the first time I went there, and I loved it. I thought it was absolutely amazing. Actually, maybe that was the second time we went. We have ate at Saddles, at least 5 or 6 times. Now, we don't vlog it every time we go, but it is typically the only place I think we know to eat other than Lago.
Well,
at the Bellagio. Those are our 2 go-tos at the Bellagio.
The problem is that we don't know. It's not that we know. It's the only thing open. The only thing open in the morning there is Saddle's and the chocolate patisserie, which only has like chocolate stuff. So it's got like ice creams, it's got coffees. But that's kind of it. Or you can get like a croissant or that's all they have. That's the only thing that's open. So Sadel's, it's not like you have a choice if you want to eat at the Bellagio. I do like it. One thing about the cheesecake, again, it was awesome. It had good whipped cream on top. The cheesecake was super tasty. Yeah. The fresh strawberries that they cut up were better than the strawberries I got in my fruit bowl. I mean, they were fantastic.
And we still have half of it in our refrigerator for later.
We left the caviar. They kept leaving the caviar like we were going to take it. It's like, we didn't like it. I mean, it was okay, but we didn't like it that much.
We're not caviar people. That was the one thing on the table that I was like,
We actually asked the waiter. We're like, what are we supposed to put this on? Because we've never really had caviar as a breakfast thing before. What are we supposed to put it on? He's like, well, a lot of people put the cream cheese on the bagel and then they spread it on top. And I was like,
or they put it on the avocado toast.
Or they put it, so they just put it on whatever then. That's what you're telling me right now. Should I put it on the cheese Danish? Should I try it there?
Should I just shoot it back?
You could have. I could have done it.
You probably could have. And they would have been like, good job, sir. Good job. You ate the caviar.
I feel like since I eat sushi with roe on it, it doesn't really bother me. It's kind of the same. They're slightly bigger, but it's kind of like the same stuff.
Yeah, I think the last time I had anything similar to that was in New Orleans when there was an appetizer we ordered at that restaurant with Sarah and Joe that had salmon roe on it.
Yeah. I think they might have got some caviar at that restaurant when we got the oysters. I'm not sure. I would have to look at the video.
Yeah, I do
might
remember there was something that had salmon roe at the very least, and I ate that.
And I think there was caviar too.
Probably was.
Because it was a fancy restaurant. It's La Revolution.
Restaurant Revolution?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Which I've talked to several people and they like that restaurant too. And honestly, I would go back and we had a great experience, honestly, other than the random people behind us that were afraid that we were filming them.
Well, that and I was already had food poisoning and that was developing that time. So it wasn't it tasted good, but I couldn't eat too much of it at the time. Yeah,
he was a trooper that night. Just beware of food poisoning in New Orleans. Yes. It's a great city.
Yes, it is a great city, but if you even look at their Reddit forums or anything, it's always like, hey, I got food poisoning here. I got food poisoning here.
Or I got flashed.
Yeah, I got flashed the penis.
there's like a flasher like that people say is like on this street every time. And they're like, I saw the flasher today.
Yeah, if you're going to Las Vegas, there's a whole Reddit forum for the flashers so that you have an idea of where they are to avoid them.
Yeah. So just, if you're going to a new city, look it up on Reddit and they'll tell you what to not do.
What to not do. So that's what we've been up to.
Yeah.
Nicey working, had the conservancy this morning.
He's been packing up this house.
Yeah, and which is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about moving. Yeah. And honestly, after this podcast, we have one more to film. And then I'm going to basically be tearing down the studio probably today. Yep. And then we got to get all this stuff downstairs because we want to donate it to charity.
Yep.
We thought about donating our car to charity or giving it to somebody, but it seems like too many headaches.
Yeah, we're trying to do it as easy as possible. So probably donating it to one of those donate car places is what we're going to end up doing.
Well, I saw Habitat here accepts cars too. So we might do Habitat for Humanity or something. I worked for them in New York for a while. So I am familiar with them. So that's an option. The only thing that I saw here, which is unlike other places we've ever lived, because I've looked into donating like just in case our entertainment center, our sofa doesn't go, it costs you money to donate here. To have a truck come and pick it up, it's $35 to get them here. And then they charge per item to donate your stuff. So if I want to give it to, I think it's Goodwill or the Boys and Girls Club, they sub out to a third party, which is some veteran-run moving company, basically. And then they'll come to your house and you have to give them an idea of what they are. And then they'll tell you how much per item they're going to charge you. That is insane.
That's insane.
I'm donating these to you. Why are you charging me?
Wow. I would rather just throw it up for free on.
Right. That's what I'm probably going to do
on Facebook.
I mean, I'm going to contact them and see like if this is legit what you're asking for, because I haven't done that for just what the website says. And sometimes it's off. Sometimes it's not as accurate. Maybe it's just $35 to get them out here. I would consider it, but I would just throw it up for free. Like somebody who needs it, hopefully will get it if we put it up for free.
I mean, who knows? If somebody offers me $1,500 for the car, maybe I'll just be like, yeah, sure, take it. But it's been such a headache.
Yes. The thing is, it's not the money that bothers me.
It's the headache.
It's they come out, they kick the tires, they stay here for an hour. They want to talk about it. None of them knows anything about automobiles, which is the most annoying. So I used to race cars when I was younger. I've read massive manuals on turbochargers and engines. I know a lot about automobiles. I don't use those skills very often, but they're still all up there. I used to maintain my cars. I used to do all that stuff. And you just look at people. We had one guy in Georgia come to the house, kick the tires. And I'm like, do you know why you're kicking the tires? No, I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't do it then if you have no idea why you're doing it in the first place. And you don't know what reaction you're looking for. Like, why are you doing this?
Well, the other guy that came this last week to look at the Explorer, he's like, got some meat on those tires. Yeah, they're fucking brand new.
And then they were squealing on the pavement because
they're so new.
Yeah, because we have weird pavement too here, and it squeals because we didn't drive it any. We didn't drive it out here. It was on a flatbed, so it was towed all the way out here.
Yeah.
and we've driven it probably
Maybe
a couple
100
hundred miles since we got the new tires. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, they're squeaky. Yeah, that's what squeaky tires do. My favorite was it's loud. Yeah, it's a 2006 Explorer. Have you never driven a car from 2006 that's an SUV? They are gas guzzling monsters.
Yeah.
They're just loud.
She's a truck.
Yeah, she's a
gonna
truck. Yes.
Like she's getting gas, but
And some of the silencer stuff on the air intake has been removed, but they wouldn't know. And
it's a
explaining that.
4x4
Well, yeah.
Explorer, and it's like an XLT, I think. So it's supposed to have a little more torque, I think, than. But it's it's loud, but it's a truck. It's a truck.
Yeah, and that's what they're supposed to do. I don't understand. Like, how are you supposed to explain to people it's doing what it's supposed to do? I don't.
And then they're like, "Oh, it's got a lot of miles." Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's got a lot of miles. It's got like 250,000.
Yeah, but that was posted on the Facebook ad, so none of that's surprising.
Yeah, and then they at the very end they're like, "Well, it's just not what I thought it was gonna be."
You mean the 12 pictures that we took and posted, the picture of the odometer, the picture of the interior? That you somehow surprised. Still surprised. I don't understand how you don't surprise them.
Yeah, so yeah, it's been a thing trying to get rid of stuff.
A little tangent on our car troubles.
Like as of right now, there's a lady asking about the mower we posted.
Yeah.
We hadn't started it in years. They came, they looked at it, started leaking gas, and they're like, "Well, we don't want a project." And all of a sudden today, they're like messaging me, calling me.
Well, that's the thing. It's cheap. It's a really good lawnmower. All he has to do is rebuild the carburetor, which is a common thing in anything with carburetors. Everyone knows after a few years, you got to rebuild a carburetor. He knows that. He apparently doesn't think we know that, but that's all you got to do. But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to fix it for somebody and then someone have come out here and lowball me. It's like they're going to lowball me anyways.
Well,
why am I going to waste my time?
He looked it up after he left and was like, "Well, I could do that."
I don't even bother like giving them advice anymore. I don't even answer them. It's like if they come in and like, "Oh, this doesn't look good," I'm like, okay, have a good day. Like that's where I ended. I'm just like, I'm not gonna chase you for this. I'm not gonna waste my time. I've done that too much. I mean, when we were selling the Jetta in Georgia many moons ago, the amount of time like I would go out in the rain and help people look at the car, and then in the end they'd be like, "Oh, I don't want it." You literally just made me come out of my house in the pouring rain to look at the car because you guaranteed me you were gonna buy it, and then you don't for no apparent reason. You just don't. It's like you just wasted my time.
Yeah, but the people for the lawnmower were these old people who refused to text me.
Yeah, they
like,
showed up, knocked on our door. I'm like, this is why people don't give addresses. I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a lot of work to go. Like we were going to send them to the Terribles down the road. Terribles is a gas station in Las Vegas. In case you're not from this coast, it doesn't mean that's just a terrible. But we were going to send them to the Terribles, and that's where we were going to meet them. It's not that far from our apartment complex, probably like 5 minutes at most. And it's like, do we just want to sit there and wait though? And it's like, no, we don't, because so many people don't show. Mm-hmm. So many people don't show.
At least I get to wait in the comfort of my own home. But yeah, so we still got a good chunk of furniture to get rid of.
We got rid of a lot of big pieces though.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the entertainment center and the couch, which we haven't tried to move the couch yet at all. But other than the entertainment center, that's really the biggest piece we got left.
Yeah, the table, I just kind of knocked down some bucks off of it, I think, this week. We have 2 nightstands. And then just the stuff downstairs.
Yeah.
That's our big pieces.
Yeah, we got the thing in there.
We got the dressers gone.
Don't you have that makeup thing that you have?
I got the tower thing, and then we've got the office tower thing,
and then we have
some side tables.
Couple side tables, yep.
But
so most of it's gone. Most of those we'll give away for free if we don't sell them because we don't care. We just want them gone.
Yeah.
And we're not selling them to make money. We're just selling them so we can get rid of them and we don't have to truck them downstairs and stuff.
And they're definitely worth something. They're not in bad condition.
Well, and if you offer them for free, here's a legit tip for you. Definitely.
You get more questions.
Yes. You are less likely to get people to actually come if you offer it for free than offering it for money. Because they're like, something's wrong with it. I don't want it. And it's like, we would give them away for free, but we're just not going to deal with the answers. And it's always like, is it still available? Yes. Why would I put something for free and leave it up if someone already picked it up? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
For the last couple months, is it still available? Yes, it is. Okay. And that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay. Like some lady messaged me about the lamps the other day, or maybe it was the fans.
I love lamp.
And she's like, is this available? I'm like, yeah. She's like, cool. When can I come see them? I was like, you can come this afternoon. Nothing. And then like later that night, she's like, I bought some. And I was like, okay, thanks for. Thanks for telling me.
Thanks for telling me. Yeah.
Crickets.
I didn't have the volume up on that, so it's a little late, but it was supposed to be when she was like quoted in the later response. But yeah, that's kind of our thing. And we're planning on moving across country, which is, again, this has to be about the 10th time we've made a long distance move. No, it is. I counted it. So we've done it over 10 times now.
Shit, that's a lot.
And when we call distance, so the state of Florida is a rather big state, but we've moved from Florida. We moved from Cape Coral. We moved up to Tallahassee.
Yep.
We moved from Tallahassee to Young Harris, which is the northern tip of Georgia, sort of between North Carolina, Tennessee. It's sort of like in that triangle area. Then we went from Young Harris to Syracuse, New York. Then we went from Syracuse back to Young Harris. Then we went from Young Harris to Cape Coral. Then we went from Cape Coral to Atlanta.
Yep.
Then we went from Atlanta to Gainesville.
Yep.
Then we went from Gainesville back up to Young Harris.
Yep.
Yep. Then we went from Young Harris down to Orlando.
Yep.
Then we stayed in Orlando for a while, and I only stopped there because I really loved Orlando. And then we headed from Orlando. We went to Albany.
That was a big move.
That was a big move, and we'll be talking about that pretty significantly in this too. Most of the moves up to that point we had done on our own. So we had gotten budget trucks or U-Hauls or whatever was honestly cheapest. And we move our stuff. That was the first time we ever used professional movers. And we'll talk about that in depth, I guarantee you. So then we went from Albany to Las Vegas.
That was another big move.
That was a huge move.
But it actually went really well.
Yeah, so I was going to say that's probably one of our smoothest moves that we've had. And hopefully this one
is
going to be just as easy. Then we got Las Vegas, and we're not really sure. We're leaning towards Orlando. Yeah. We're definitely leaning pretty heavily towards Orlando, but California still calls to us.
Yeah.
It's the light, it's the sea, it calls me. No one knows how that Hollywood sign goes.
And what's really fun, I guess, this next month, the next 6 weeks, really, all my contracts are in California. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of the great state of California over the next 6 weeks between LA and San Francisco, Sacramento, and then wherever my work takes me, because they take me all over. Like I got to go drive. I didn't physically get to go into the area, but I got to drive past like Magic Mountains. I went to where was the last place?
Magic Mountains. I'm sorry.
Six
what's
Flags.
that? Six Flags. I thought when you say Magic Mountains, I think of that thing outside of Las Vegas, the Seven Magic Mountains. Sorry.
Yeah. So Six Flags Magic Mountains, I got to drive past that.
Wally World.
I got to drive through this pass and saw this like incredible rainbow. Obviously, I couldn't tape it because I was driving and I was by myself, but it was really cool. If I could have gotten out of the car and looked for a pot of gold, that would have been it. Like that would have been the day.
Your luck, though, you would have just found the Lucky Charms guy, and he's like, "Here's a box of Lucky Charms," and you would have been like, "Thanks." You just missed it. The other guy got the pot of gold. You get the Lucky Charms.
Now get back in your car and go back to reality.
Yeah. Or you get the angry leprechaun from the Leprechaun movies.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever watched those.
It's a horror movie, so that's all you need to know.
Well, yeah, that would suck too. That would also suck. But it is almost St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost St. Patrick's Day. That's coming up soon.
Didn't even remember. That's like March something, isn't it? March 14th, isn't it normally? Or like March...
It's coming up. I just
will
know
look when I'm off camera because it's March 15th right now and we're filming, and it's like I
feel like it's coming.
Yeah, it's got to be coming. I feel the green coming.
So because I saw pictures that they were dyeing rivers green again. So the last year we were in Memphis for St. Patrick's Day because there was a bunch of stuff. We went on Green Street. It was fun. But yeah, and I went to because remember, I spent the whole drive home trying to be like, this place sounds familiar, but we couldn't place it.
Yeah. So you were in Burbank, but that's not what you went. You went to Palm Springs, which was
Springs.
And Palm Springs it's Pasadena, wasn't it? Palm Springs. Wow. The hospital that was there, the pictures that you sent me of just like the rest area and like the lunchroom. Holy cow. And I've seen the airport there, which is, it must be nice to have money. But March 17th is St. Patrick's Day, so it's 2 days from now, so it's Sunday. So it'll be before we get this on the air, but it's after us taping it.
Speaking of selling things online, the person that wants to come get her gym mat finally texted me.
Oh, that's great.
So they're like, oh, I was trying to wait out the rain. I'm like, nah, it's going to rain all day.
It's going to rain.
So they said they'd be here in like an hour. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, let me see if I can remember what the name of that city was. That was because we were just like...
Yeah, it was so familiar, but we couldn't place.
We couldn't place it to save our lives.
Well, let's talk about.
Start talking, and I'll look it up.
So one of the interesting things too with this packing is we basically start from the ground up and start packing. We've got all of our sort of collectibles packed. We have all of our movies packed, which is a couple of big boxes. Now we're kind of down to like the last remaining things, and that's the worst for me. Because you think you're almost done. It's like, oh, I only need like 2 more boxes. And then you start packing and you're like 4 boxes in and you're still in the same area. And it's just so frustrating that you're like, can I just get done with this packing already? And that's kind of the stage I'm at right now. I just want to be done. So what'd you find? You look like you found something.
It was Bakersfield.
Bakersfield. Sounds familiar. Is that from a movie, y'all? Do y'all out there, do you know? I mean, we've looked and I can't seem to place why we know Bakersfield.
Yeah, why do we know this?
I don't know either. Like, it's really weird. Is it sports related? Is it movie related? It just sounds like Bakersfield is famous for something that we're missing. And I don't know what it is.
Here's the thing, too. I have closed the chest of drawers one, which is the dressers.
Yeah.
As sold, and people are still messaging me.
Is it available?
They're like, I'll take it. I already sold them last weekend.
Yeah, they're gone. And oh my gosh, yes. Speaking of that, the bookshelves. We should talk about the bookshelves for a second. So the people who are doing the Dean Martin, was it? No, it wasn't Dean Martin. It was who was the performer? It's a farewell thing, and it's at the Westgate. Oh, anyways, they're doing like a farewell show to this famous lounge singer, and his name is totally escaped me. I'll probably remember it throughout the podcast. But they came to look at the bookshelves, and Nacy's like, cash only. And they're like, oh, and we're running late. And she's like, okay. They asked if we would accept like Venmo or something. And they said they were running late. Nacy said, cash only. And it's okay that you're running late. And she said, it's okay that you're running late. Mm-hmm. That's what she said. They show up and they're like, oh, we want a Venmo or something, the money. And I'm like, no, it's just cash. It's just cash. We want just cash. It was only like $50. You get 2 shelves for $50. They sell for like over 100 a piece. So it was a pretty good deal. And he's like, oh, I want to do this. Is there like a ATM or anything? I'm like, well, there's a gas station right there. And we're only like 2 exits from a bunch of stuff. So you can go wherever you want. You also have a GPS. You can easily look it up where to go. But for some reason, couldn't figure that out.
Yeah. And then they like hemmed and hollered.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, get into the modern age. I'm like, I'm not paying taxes on this stuff. Like, we're selling so little, but if we go over $600 and you do it through a Cash App, we're going to have to pay taxes on everything. Mm-hmm. And we're just not going to do that. We're just trying to get rid of this stuff. Like we said, we would give it away for free if it wasn't so freaking difficult to give stuff away for free anymore.
Well, taxing aside, I think the biggest thing is the fact that there's people who will buy stuff on Venmo. They'll send you the money, but then once they have it in their possession, they'll do like a chargeback, or they'll try to like get their money back. Yep. And I don't want to deal with that.
Or the biggest scam where they'll overpay you and then be like, hey, I overpaid you on accident. Can you send that back to me? And then you send it back and you realize that the whole thing was fraudulent the whole time, and now you lose all that money.
Yeah. And then, like they get access to your bank account and like all that other stuff. Like Venmo's okay for certain things. I use it for very specific things. Like if I'm paying somebody back for shit, like if we go out to lunch or something, I'm like, here, I'll Venmo you for A, B, and C. But like outside of that, I don't.
And Venmo wants a piece of that money too. Yeah. So instead of making $50, we'd make 40 something. And it's like, no, you just want the $50. We want to be able to move on. We want you to give me the money, and then you go and you enjoy the shelves, and I enjoy the money.
Yep. That's Cash is easy.
Yeah. And so made a whole thing. Then he left, and then they texted Nacy and like, I thought you took Venmo. And it's like all over the thing, it says cash only. Let me be clear. Like the whole ad, every single one says cash only at least 3 times in it. And so they're like, oh, you need to be clear. And it's like, how do you want me to be clear? Do you want me to put billboards up on the way here? Hey, where you're going to buy that item? it's cash only.
Yeah,
Like,
and they were like, "Oh, we have to be back at the strip for
the show.
this
Yeah.
and for that," and it's like, okay, well, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
Like, okay, and they're like, "Good luck selling."
And we sold it literally 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
They came literally to pick it up the next hour. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, it was really hard. The thing is, a lot of people want the stuff, but everyone thinks they're the only person that wants it. And it's like, it's not how it works.
Or people just want shit for free too. Like they did.
But if you offered it for free, they wouldn't come. Oh,
It's-
something must be wrong with it.
It's weird.
It's
Yeah,
so
it's,
freaking weird.
I hate it. I hate
Yes.
selling shit online.
And
but
and you have to do an inflated price because they always want to get a deal. And it's like their deals are typically more than we would have sold it for if we would just put the regular price. But hey,
yeah,
whatever.
So if I look away during the podcast, it's mostly because I'm waiting for people to show up in the middle of the podcast that we're filming.
So we talked a little bit about how many times we've moved across country. So let's detail a little bit about those moves. So most of them prior to the Orlando move, we would go to U-Haul or a budget.
Yeah.
We'd rent a truck, and then we would manually, me mostly,
Yep. Macy can't lift shit.
load a truck with stuff. So we would load. We took the biggest ones. We took the medium ones. We never took a small though,
No.
unless it was around town. They were just big ones. So that's what we typically drive, and then we drive it.
Yep.
Long distances.
He would. Well, sometimes I would drive
Yeah,
it.
sometimes you would drive. We would definitely depends on what cars we were bringing and
Yeah.
how that stuff worked. The biggest thing with the U-Haul trucks is they guzzle gas. They're not maintained, and they will be the worst ride of your life.
Yeah. I remember the really big one that we moved to Atlanta with. I
From
drove
Cape
that
Coral.
one.
That was a good 14, 16-hour drive.
Yeah, I drove that one. That was not great or pleasant. And then the one we took from Young Harris to Syracuse, oh, that was a lovely move. It started off with I had the animals in my car. I had both dogs and a cat. And we got 3 minutes into our drive. And it's a little curvy, like coming out of his parents' house. It's dark because we wanted to get on the road as soon as possible. And Logan starts vomiting in the back of my car. And I'm like, great. So we pulled over because there's like an industrial park-ish area. We pulled over in there. Gary pulled, I think, before me or maybe after me. And we got the dogs situated. And then it came time to get his car out. And we couldn't.
Well, it was the budget truck with a trailer on the back of it. So it had a trailer with my pickup on the back. And so we tried to back that out and it didn't get stuck. A couple things before we go too deep into that story. The reason why budget trucks and them suck is because if you ever have to go up a mountain, they lose power.
Yeah.
Typically the air conditionings don't work. The windshield wiper blades will be so used that they'll be absolutely worthless. And you'll be lucky if the headlights have any volume on them when you turn them on. They are so dim.
Yeah, frustrating. It was a very frustrating thing to use them.
Yeah, every time. And so we headed up to Syracuse after the truck got stuck. Then we had to wait for someone to help tow it out,
Yep.
tow out the trailer. And the thing was, it was bouncing all around before we even got there. And we're like, we're not going to do this because the trip to Syracuse was at least
2 days.
2 days. And we were like, we can't do this and have this thing bouncing around behind us the whole time. So we literally took the trailer back to the place where we rented it and said, we don't want it. We don't want this trailer. We need the truck, but we don't want the trailer at all.
Yep.
So they took it off. And then getting a refund for that was a pain because I had to show all this evidence after we were done that we didn't take it with us. Like somehow it mystically,
Yeah.
it was just,
It was frustrating.
again, rentals, which is why we tried to avoid this in the future. And so then we got up to Syracuse and that went okay. I mean, obviously it was slow. Luckily it wasn't snowing or anything at the time.
Yeah, we moved in the summer.
Yeah. And so that was its own nightmare of living
He sprained his
situation.
ankle pretty bad too that trip.
Yeah, when I jumped out of the truck when we were stuck in the mud, I went right into a hole and I nastied my ankle pretty good.
So he did the entire drive with a severely sprained ankle.
Yep.
And then we unloaded the truck with a severely sprained ankle.
Yep.
And I think to this day, his ankle has never been the same.
Probably not.
I think some of his foot problems stem from that injury and probably other injuries that he had before then. But yeah. So
Yeah, that was not a fun trip, but we got through it and that was okay. And then we moved back.
Yeah.
We had a whole different set of issues. We literally took another. It was a. I don't know. It was budget or they're the same.
Yeah,
honestly.
I think it was budget.
But I think it was budget. And so the closest budget to my dad's was Atlanta almost. So we had to go like 2 hours south of my father's house to return it. And like right when we got to his house, the check engine light came on.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is insane. You want me to drive this truck another 2 hours
Gainesville. Yeah, we had to
drop
go
it
to
off?
Gainesville.
Yeah, to drop it off. And they're like, well, you can make it down the mountain. And so we tried and it started like stuttering. And then once you hit like a mountain going downhill, the brakes weren't working right. And it was like, so you expect me to get down? And they call it Hell's Pass as a nickname. And there's another not so great nicknames for it because a lot of people die on this thing.
Oh, Blood Mountain.
Blood Mountain. We had to go through that. And it was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? And they were so not helpful. And we learned from later that we should have just abandoned it on the side of the road and been like, it's broken down. I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
Like we're too nice of people is what I've learned from that trip.
That's also fear too. Fear that they're going to come after you.
Yep.
Like fear that they're going to get more money out of you. And when you're broke and you got no cash,
Exactly.
fear is heavy.
Fear is the mind killer.
So yeah, so that sucked. And I think too, after that move, when we moved out of Gainesville, back to your dad's, when we were emptying out that apartment, we made a decision to hire movers to move our stuff out because we were on a second floor apartment.
Yep.
And my dad and a friend helped us move into that place.
Yep.
And we did not have free labor available to us. And my dad's kind of a beast when he starts moving shit. He doesn't care what he breaks, but
That's the problem. Yeah. He scratches the walls and breaks stuff.
Yeah.
Which is okay. That was us too. Honestly, when I'm doing it
It's free,
myself.
yeah.
Right. I probably wasn't as clean as I should have been. And we decided to deal with like two men moving or two college guys or two dorms something.
Two college hunks, I think, is
Yeah,
what
it was
the
like
company was.
it was college something and it was dudes.
And they were great.
great.
They wrapped everything. They packed our truck as
So
best
fast.
they could. Like they
So
were done
fast.
in like an hour and a half, and we were like, "Wow!"
And like we're gonna do this more often.
So that was that's definitely a pro tip in the future, and we'll talk about that. Is having people at the very least move
Unload
your
trucks,
stuff in and out because it really it's not worth killing yourself. It's really, and they're really not that expensive now. When we moved into our apartment in Orlando,
Well, you're getting ahead of yourself. Let's slow down a little bit here. So when we got it up to Georgia, we just moved into a pod.
yeah,
And that's super easy to do on your own. If you
Yeah.
don't have much stuff, we basically built shelves in the pod or in the storage thing. It's basically a pod, but it's a storage
Yeah.
room. We built shelves and then we just stacked the boxes on the shelves and organized them. It worked
Yep.
perfectly. And then when we moved down to Orlando, me and my dad loaded up the truck. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that big of a deal because it was right out the door, right into the truck. Not a big deal. And then I drove it to Orlando. That was really when I got tired of driving these things because, again, they're always just such shitty drives. They
such
really are.
crappy. Yeah,
I left early in the morning. There were no major issues. Just the truck couldn't get over 60. Every time you go uphill, it couldn't get over 45. So it extends your trip significantly. You imagine if you're supposed to be going like 80 miles per hour and it's going half that pace, that doubles the amount of time you're going to be on the road.
yeah, and they're gas guzzlers.
And they're gas guzzlers. And so when we got there, we were living in a pretty crappy apartment in Orlando.
That was,
It was bug infested by the end. It was not, and not because of us, because of our neighbors. They definitely were just.
well,
and,
they were doing
and trash.
construction. Yeah, they were
And
doing
trash
construction.
everywhere.
And as the construction started to get closer to our apartment,
More bugs.
the more bugs started to
Yes.
appear. And so that was like, oh my God,
They
like
were-
when we leave here, we got to make sure everything is sealed.
Yep.
Because we didn't like everything that left the one house got washed before it even like came
Yep.
into the new house. And
Because the new apartment was really nice.
yeah,
And the one thing too was like it was a tiny apartment for some reason, and like it was just an
it's like
interesting.
900 square feet. It
Yeah.
was tiny.
It was across from the big mall that's in
Altamont Springs.
Altamont Springs.
Yeah.
And they tell you the gate's working. It hasn't worked in years.
Hasn't worked in
Everybody will
years.
tell you that. But we moved in, so we got there. I got the truck there the day before,
Yeah.
and then the next day movers were supposed to come. And we've had the worst moving experiences with the Orlando people. Like that, they
Yeah.
were horrible. The first people were so slow. It took them
Several hours.
like 7 or 8 hours to unpack one truck. I was moving faster than them before they got there. I unloaded more of the truck in less than an hour than they did with the rest of the day.
Yeah.
I already had half the truck unloaded because I'm like, well, I'm just sitting here. They were late.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just going to start moving stuff. And I had half the truck unpacked before they got there, and they still took like 7 hours to do it. And then they wanted a tip, and we gave them a tip, and they were so surprised that we gave them a tip. It was really weird. And it's like, yeah, I know, we shouldn't have given you a tip. You were that bad.
Yeah. So that experience wasn't great. And then when we moved across town to our new apartment, we kind of, because we had both places for a few weeks, we kind of just took small loads every day because we worked, our main office, because we actually worked at the same office during this time, was closer to our old apartment. So we would start our day there, like we would have a load in our car, and then at the end of the day, we would finish at the new apartment and unload. So we kind of slowly got more stuff over there, and we would put it away, and then we would use the box again. We'd bring the empty boxes back, and we'd load those up. So that was how we were able to make sure nothing followed us.
Yeah. But we also did eventually get a truck and have them drive it across town. And they were super slow too.
Yeah, they were. And it was a first floor. They went from a second story in the old apartment to a first floor.
Yep. And they were super slow. And he was talking about how he had to work overtime to get it done. It's like, you guys are ridiculously slow. This is absolutely ridiculous.
So it wasn't even like our whole apartment. It was like a quarter.
Just the big pieces basically.
Yeah.
And the funny thing with it was too, is that just how bad and lazy they were there. I mean, you think about the college guys went upstairs, moved all of our stuff in less than an hour. And yet these guys took 7 or 8 hours to move less stuff.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have furniture when we moved there. And when we moved to the other one, we didn't take much furniture because we were afraid that bugs were going to be in it.
Yep. So, so then fast forward to our move from Orlando to Albany. And that was a doozy.
That was a nightmare.
That was a move. We learned so much.
Which we're going to talk about
later
about like basic tips, but we will give you a sort of overview of what happened with it.
So because they were going to help pay for some of my moving expenses, and if you know anything about moving expenses and taxes, it's not like a tax deduction anymore unless you're in the military. So
well, I don't know now. It might have came back. Remember, it was supposed to go away.
I don't know.
We're not tax professionals.
So don't take any advice from us.
But at the time, it did not count.
At the time, it did not count, which I did not know going into it. But they were going to help reimburse some of my moving costs. And so we were like, well, let's get movers, because why are we finagling doing all of this ourselves when we can have somebody else drive it for us, get it there, unpack it, all that jazz. Sounded like it was good. Did a little bit of research online. There were mixed reviews. There were positives. There were negatives. There really wasn't a whole lot of information online about movers and red flags to look for. There just wasn't really there. People in the military move all the time. So we were just like, okay, let's try it. And so we booked this company, and they took us for ransom.
We booked Roadrunner is what they were called.
Yeah.
Now they go under like 7 different names at the time. Who knows what they're called now, because they've clearly gone bankrupt. It was interesting. So when they first showed up, they were movers from Miami that came up from Miami that day to load our apartment, which we thought was strange. But sometimes they're housed in different areas. That's not super weird.
And they were quick. They wrapped all our furniture.
Yeah.
I mean, they were doing legitimate things while they were packing up our car. And then it came time to finalize the paperwork and the payments, which we looked into. It specifically said that we could put it on our credit card, which is what we wanted to do.
And it said that before we called them too.
Yeah.
So it said that on the website, which is one of the reasons why we went with them, because they said that we could use a credit card.
And we wanted to make sure that we had some protection, which is why we book with our credit card, because we want to make sure that if something doesn't go right, we have a means to dispute that, which you can't do with your debit card in your bank.
So step 1, he goes to pay at the end. Obviously, it was over. It's always going to be over. Just know that. That's a little tip that we'll be talking about at the end. It's always over space-wise, no matter what. Somehow they always finagle it. Even if you get space that's too big, somehow they'll be over. So it's always going to be extra. We go to pay, and he's like, oh, my card reader's broken.
And we were like, okay.
They're like, so can we call somebody now to pay? Oh no, they're out of the office.
And he still tried to call a couple people.
Yeah.
But it didn't go anywhere, and we don't really know who he actually called.
Yeah, because no one knew the next day.
So they were like, so tomorrow they'll call you and they'll get the payment.
And you can pay over the phone.
And we were like, okay, all right, sign the contract.
Yep, with it saying that we can pay on credit cards too on the contract.
Contract literally said that all 3 payments can be credit card. And so they left with our stuff, and we slept in an air mattress
In an air mattress, and then we were going to go spend our last real day in Orlando at Disney.
Yeah, and then we get to Disney, and we're maybe an hour into our day, and I get the phone call. And that was when they told us that we would have to wire transfer. I think it was like $600 or something like that to them, or we would never see our stuff again.
Yeah, they literally said that. They threatened to keep our stuff. Because we're like, well, then just bring it back. We'll use somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, we can't. You're going to have to pay us first. What?
So we would have to pay them to drive the truck back to Orlando.
And you have to wire them money to pay them back, to drive it back. It was a nightmare. The guy's literally arguing with me on the phone. I'm like, it's literally right in front of me. It says credit card. We took a picture of it, had to send it to him. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, he knew. It was an old contract. That's not what we do anymore.
But they can't honor it still.
So we can't honor it because we don't have any way to accept credit cards anymore. And just so you know, if a moving company doesn't accept credit cards, it's because they don't want people to charge back. Mm-hmm. And so it's a scam.
I think knowing what I know now, if I was to relive that experience ever again, I probably would have put a pause on the move. And I would have, because we were still in the same state, nothing had crossed state lines at that point, and I would have taken them to court. Yep. And we would have won. Now,
easily. Yep.
That would have cost us money, time, and resources.
Yeah.
Which we didn't have at the time. Or we probably could have figured out a way, but it just, when you're in the moment and you're in that time and you don't know what the end result is going to be, you just don't know the answers. And we'll talk about that at the end when we talk about things to look out for in our tips and stuff. But going back now, I think I would have put a pause on at least part of it. We would have figured out a place for like maybe Gary to stay in the state, or we would have done something different for sure. So we felt like we were stuck.
Yeah.
And so we did. We figured it out. We got the cash, and
we went to a Publix. We went to a Publix by our house. We had to go home. Mm-hmm. We had to get our information. We had to go to the bank, get cash, and then we had to go to Publix and do the wire transfer through Western Union.
Which was, no, I did it through my bank. I think I did it through my bank. The Western Union, I think we did when we got back.
Oh, that was the apartment complex in Gainesville then.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyways,
but still,
we had to
it was very nerve-wracking giving somebody a direct access to your bank account, which doesn't have a lot of money in it to begin with. And we were counting our pennies and dollars because we had a place.
And we cleared money off the credit card so that we could put the move on the credit card so that we'd have enough money for the move.
So, financially, we were just kind of holding our breath. So we did it. We paid it. And we hit the road. And we got to Albany.
Well, and we made a mistake. We shouldn't have paid them like you said. Even if they would, because when we eventually do get the stuff, it was all damaged and destroyed. So there was no reason we should have paid them in the first place.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say so we get to Albany. We had a date of I think 2 days after we got to Albany was when they were supposed to deliver.
Yep.
And so we got our apartment. We had our air mattress, and it was the day we got the keys. I got a phone call from them saying that they were available to deliver. Were we available to receive? And I was like, yep. And they delivered it that night. And it was that experience I think I will always have PTSD about. Well,
and the weird thing was too, so after we got it where it says a credit card. We should be able to pay with a credit card. Oh, we can't do that. And then they started threatening that it would take longer for us to get our stuff in New York if we didn't pay sooner. Mm-hmm. So it became the extortion racket was just ridiculous with these people.
It was just, they preyed on us.
So we actually didn't want them to come that day, but because we were afraid that we wouldn't get the stuff if we didn't accept it, we're like, well, we've got to. We have to accept it. We have to deal with this stuff because we wanted to clean a little bit more before the stuff came.
So
And
the
we
diff-
checked, and we
and-
checked that they delivered to stories, and they would go up one story supposedly,
Yep.
and put your stuff in.
So we were like, that's fine. They can come in the first story. Now, remember, the second payment was a wire transfer, which we thought would be what the third payment was. No, it had to be in cash.
Yep.
Third payment had to be in cash. So here we are in a city we don't know, and we've got to figure out where we're going to get cash.
And she didn't find that out until after the call when she was talking to them. They're like, we're going to deliver. And she's like, okay. And they're like, you still have this outstanding balance. And she's like, yeah, we're going to wire transfer. And they're like, no, you have to pay us cash when we deliver. Otherwise, we're not going to deliver it.
And it's like, I think 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm like, cool. Banks are probably closed. And like, so it was a scramble.
She literally dropped me off in downtown Albany outside this Chase. I had to run inside because she couldn't find a parking spot. I had to run inside, get the money out of the ATM, and then run back to the car, and then we left. It was insane.
It was stressful,
Yeah,
for sure. So we make it back to the house, and they eventually show up.
Yep.
And they start unloading the car, and they're just chucking. They're just chucking the stuff.
Well, no, first, that's not what happened. So first, they just wanted to put it in our garage. They wanted us to move the cars out, and they would just put all the stuff in the garage, and then we had to get it up the stairs. So our house in Albany, you go into the garage, and then it's up a flight of stairs to get to our living room and everything else. And then there's a second flight of stairs that goes to a second bedroom, a bathroom, and like a loft area. We didn't expect them to go up there because according to the contract, they wouldn't unless we paid them more.
Yeah, they
So
could
we're
go
like-
up one flight of stairs.
So we're like, well, we'll just get them to put it in the living room, and then we'll take care of everything that goes upstairs.
Yep.
And that was like a fight. And he's like, well, this is more than, he said like 4 steps per level. And that's not, it's 16 steps, just so in case you ever get this in before. A level in a house typically has 16 steps, 12 to 16 steps is a level. So it would have to be that many to go up a level. He said that ours had 14, and that meant it was 2 levels, not 1. So we'd have to pay the extra fee.
And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. And we went back and forth. He's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. We'll do it.
Fine. We'll do it. But, make sure to consider this when you give us a tip, is what he said.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, whatever. Just put it up here. So he dumped our weights still. He didn't bring everything up to the level.
Yeah.
Anything he didn't feel like it, he just left in our garage.
This is true.
There's 2. There's this one guy who did all the talking, and then there was his partner.
And he didn't say
And the
much.
partner didn't say anything at all to us, really.
But they are just chucking the boxes up the stairs.
Oh my gosh, just chucking them.
The furniture.
We had IKEA bookshelves. We had the big wood ones that are basically just holes that you put the cloth buckets in,
Yeah, like the cubby holes.
Yeah. They were in great shape when we left. Every single one of them wouldn't stand up straight. One, they had wrapped in this blanket. The blankets are saturated with water.
Yes.
Saturated with water. Everything was soaked with water. It was freaking insane. He takes off the blanket on this bookcase, and the thing just fell to pieces. Like, he literally takes off the blanket, and it just falls to pieces. And I'm like, hell?
why is my stuff broken? He's like, oh, it was like this when we picked it up.
Yeah, it's like this when we picked it up.
I'm like, well, you're accountable for when you pick up stuff.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a transfer of goods, what you accepted in,
So,
you're stating that it was in an acceptable.
Yeah. And we're like, so you documented that somewhere, right? Oh, no, it was like that when we got it, but we don't doc. And I'm like, you're lying.
And what's interesting is we did go through several rain pockets on our drive to New York. So we found out later that it got transferred to like 4 different vehicles and that our stuff just got sat out in a parking lot in the rain.
So how Roadrunner does it is basically they sub out to other companies. They buy space. So like if United, which is a big company, is moving somebody from, say, Miami to Atlanta, right? They will buy space on that truck if there's any left over. So if there's so many cubic feet, they'll buy space. And that's what they would do. They bought a space in somebody else's truck. They put our storage stuff in there, all of our stuff in there. Then this truck goes to wherever, or Atlanta, or even outside of Atlanta. They have these spaces, right? And people coordinate these things, and they basically just drop your stuff off in a field.
Yep.
And then another truck comes along later and picks it up in that field and then takes it further. And again, they bought space in another truck. Maybe that person's moving from Atlanta to Milwaukee or something. So you get as far along as it goes. They take it out of the truck. They put it in a field again. and then another truck comes along and picks it up. So it's getting rained on every time they take it out of that truck and
And they're
poured on.
not taking care of it.
And they're
either.
just chucking it.
They're
Yeah,
chucking it.
because the people in the truck aren't getting paid for that. They're
Yeah.
getting tips on the big one that had a little bit of extra space that we're now taking.
Yep.
They don't get any extra money from us for that. So why would they take care of our stuff?
Yeah, they're essentially like a broker.
Yep.
So never work with a broker for
But no
moving.
morals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so our couch was soaked. All of the furniture was soaked.
Our
Our
mattress
boxes.
our mattress was in a bag.
Yeah.
And somehow it had gotten opened and
Was
soaked
dirty.
and dirty. It was so weird. Like, who would open a mattress bag up?
Yeah, because our mattress had to go in one of those sealed.
Yep, that was the only way they would
biohazard-
move it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, whatever, we did it.
Yeah, that's not a problem. The weird thing is that it was
And
open
it's
when it
sealed.
got here.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
literally taped, sealed.
And zipped.
It
had
was-
zipped too. And it was
it was-
untaped and unzipped.
And
it was
there were like gashes in the plastic,
Yep.
which it's thick plastic
Yeah.
because it's a biohazard. And yeah, it was weird.
and the
It was-
moving blankets were soaking wet, like dripping on our floor, soaking wet. Everything inside of them was damp, and it was just
And then
such a nightmare.
boxes were broken, like
And 4 were missing.
demolished.
Yeah.
And crushed, like
and we use-
something like if you see a trash compactor
Yeah.
and how they compact, there were boxes that looked like that.
Yep. And on top of that, we use plastic boxes. So they're
Yeah.
not even cardboard. We use plastic boxes. The entire thing was plastic boxes. Everything was built to be moved.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they still just decimated our stuff.
And then we had boxes that what was weird is some boxes we opened and they had stuff that was clearly not in that box.
Yeah, they went through our
originally.
boxes. Yeah.
They went through our shit.
Yeah, they went through our stuff. They lost 4 boxes. So
Yep.
they lost 4 of our boxes. They then went through all of our other stuff, and there's stuff that had been taken, had been moved. It was,
That was
so
broken?
strange. Luckily, we didn't put anything valuable in
Yeah.
the moving stuff. All of our like collectibles and cards and stuff like
We
that,
kept
we
on our
put
person.
it. Yeah, we put it in one of the 2 cars that we brought.
Yeah. It was.
It was a nightmare. And then the guy who was
And
moving.
the piece de la resistance at the end.
was something. So they get done moving. They have all this trash in our garage that they didn't pick
No
up.
answers for us at all because we're like, hey, we're missing 4 boxes based on your number system because they put little stickers on all the boxes that they're supposed to scan, I'm guessing. I don't know. But we're like, you're missing 4 boxes.
Well, it wasn't just that. So they give us a piece of paper with all the scanned boxes on it, and we check it off as they bring it in. So we had to work, by the way, which again, something I don't think we were supposed to have to do. But we had to work and check off these boxes when they brought them in. So he's like, here's the list, check them off. So we checked them all off. At the end, we're like, there's 4 boxes that aren't here. Oh, that's not possible. There's 4 boxes literally on the list of the paper that you gave us. There's missing. He wasn't even going to give us a copy of this, by the way. We had to take pictures of it because we couldn't keep it after they found out that 4 boxes were missing.
Yep.
So we're like, where's the 4 boxes? Oh, I don't know. He made some fake phone calls,
Yep.
disappeared for a little bit, then came back and it's like, you're just going to have to file a claim with the
It's
insurance.
like, you can come walk in the truck and look in the truck.
Yeah.
And
You're just-
obviously there's nothing in the truck.
Right. Well, what does that matter, by the way? It's his truck.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? He could have
Yeah.
dropped it off anywhere. He picked it up in New York City from wherever the transition was in that. And who knows if he picked it up in New York City or even South or whatever. Who knows?
Right.
But they were from New York City.
Yeah. So then it comes time to square up with payment.
Yep.
And
And so I did this very sort of litigiously. I was like, okay, we paid him the money that was owed. And I'm like, okay, is everything done? Yeah. I'm like, okay, let's sign these papers. And he signed the papers. And I'm like, so we're all done. He's like, yeah, we're all done. Now, where's my tip? And we were like, no tip. You destroyed our stuff. We're missing 4 boxes.
you're not giving us any answers, no help.
There's weights downstairs. There's a ton of trash in my garage that I'm going to have to take care of. I'm going to have to bring all of the weights and personal equipment upstairs on my own. Like you didn't.
Our stuff's wet.
We had to fight with you to get you to deliver it to our living room, and that was hard enough.
Yeah, I don't see where giving you a tip.
Yeah, we're like, you don't deserve a tip.
And the other guy was like, all right, whatever, I'm getting out of here.
Yep.
Like he was like, I'm not going to deal with this. And
He's
then,
like, all right, man, that's shitty, but I'm going to go. And I'm like, yeah, it was shitty what you brought us. So,
Well, yeah, and you didn't take any care either. Like you just didn't care.
yeah.
There's
Or-
a difference. Like if you had showed some compassion and you showed that you cared just in the slightest, and I'm not asking for a lot, but even just in the slightest, maybe there might have been some hope for you.
Right.
And so then the other guy is just like starting to like get angry, and he's making phone calls, and he's calling me a bitch, and like
he
all
called
this
his
stuff.
boss, like, we're gonna listen to his boss. I'm like, well, we paid you, we're done.
Yeah,
like,
we
you
paid for
you,
the job.
you signed it off, we're done. Like, there's nothing you can do here. And that's what his boss said too. He's like, I don't understand, they've paid you, you have to go, they don't have to tip you.
Yeah. And so he wouldn't leave. He would not leave our apartment. So I had to call the Albany Police Department.
Yeah, first day there.
First day. And I was like in tears, having a panic attack, because here we are in a city where we don't know anybody at all. Like, I really didn't get a lot of help from my employer either. So I had no real contacts to reach out to anybody for like, hey, like, what should I do? Like, is this, like, what should I do? Like, we were scared because I don't know if these individuals have guns or weapons. Like, I don't know. You're in my house. I want you to leave, and you won't leave.
Yep.
And so I was like, well, I'm going to call the police if you don't leave. He's like, go ahead and call the police. And like, he's just being a dick.
Yeah, he like we had a windowsill that was just over the stairs. He sat on that windowsill and was calling his boss and just like sitting there. And his friend's like, let's go, man. You're not going to get anything here. And he's like, no, I'm going to wait. And his boss is on the phone. And you can hear his boss being like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You can't get any more money out of them.
Yeah, so I called the police, and they did show up.
Right after they left. So
yeah.
It took about 30 minutes for the police to come. Eventually, he's like, fuck them. You know, this stupid bee. You can't believe you called the police on us. It's like, what else are we going to do? You're not leaving our house.
You're trespassing at this point.
You're not leaving our house.
And I don't know what your next move is if I don't get you out of here.
So the police came. Yeah, and they showed up right after they left. So they must have drove right past this truck.
Yeah.
Police pretended like they never saw it. How that's possible? Because there's only one way in and out of our apartment complex. We know it after a while.
Yeah.
We didn't really know it then, but we know it now. They clearly saw it. We're like, can we get a copy of the report? We had to go down to the station to get a copy of the report and the report number. They made it just as difficult as possible for us too. And it was like, oh, thanks. This is really great. This is a great first day in Albany.
Yeah. So, and then obviously the other thing we were worried about is, one, they knew where we lived.
Yep.
They knew we had stuff. If they didn't get the tip, they could just come back and like break in.
Well, and they'd already
something.
went through our stuff too in the boxes. So we know they'd went through our stuff too. So they know what's valuable that we have.
So there was like this lingering fear for about a week.
Yeah.
I think I had of like they could come back at any point and basically rob us.
Oh yeah, we were overly cautious for that period.
It was not very settling, like at all. So, and then came the process of trying to get a refund or try to get some recourse for all of our damages.
The 4 lost boxes, all the stuff that they took out of our boxes, all of the damaged. Every single bookshelf, everything that we brought was just destroyed. And we documented
everything to the T. Like that night after they left, we stayed up for hours.
Yep. Taking pictures, going through everything.
Documenting everything.
Yep.
And months later, because it took months.
Well, let's not skip the process. So I did the process. So I'll tell you what the process is like. Nacy was working, so I was the only one that had free time to do this. The process, we went to a website. The website was so outdated, it felt like it was like a 2000s website. You had to put text in. You couldn't copy paste into the boxes. You could only put so much text in each box. And you had to count out each one's weight. So you had to know the weight of everything because they don't pay you by item. They pay you by weight. So I looked up weights. I put those in. It took me hours to put this thing in. Then you submit it, and all they send you is, oh, good luck. We might reach out again. We might not. If you have to redo this, you might have to redo this. So then we followed up like a week later with the company. We're like, hey, we haven't heard anything. Oh, you're going to have to resubmit. So I had to do it again. And I spent 2 hours going through this stuff, and I copy pasted everything that I could. And then you had to type in the stuff that you can't. So I basically had a Word document with all the text that I'd have to retype into the document. Did that again. Finally, like 2 months later, they offered us like $100.
Yeah.
$100
for being threatened by the movers.
Yeah, we submitted the police report because we had to go get that.
For losing 4 boxes.
4 boxes.
God knows what, honestly. and then damaging
every single bookshelf.
90% of our property.
Yeah. Every single bookshelf, every single box that was in there that was damaged, we couldn't reuse. We had to throw away almost half the boxes that we had because we couldn't reuse them.
Not fulfilling the contract
Yeah.
that they gave us.
$100 measly. And so then we started looking at legal options. Well, some legit tips for you. If you move across state, it's federal. So you'd have to go to a federal court. Federal court waiting times are typically 5 to 7 years before they'll even hear the case.
Yeah.
And then finding an attorney that will take it is next to impossible because they don't want it.
Interstate law is just, it's like
Yeah,
pirates.
they're like, it's ridiculous. There's nothing much we can do. We contacted attorney generals in 3 different states, Florida, New York, and Georgia too, because that's apparently where one of their main companies were. So we checked there too. All of them got back to us and were like, sucks to be you. Nothing we can do about it.
Mm-hmm. It was, it was sad. It was a sad time. So
it was one of the most eye-opening things I've ever seen. I can't believe that they allow people to rob people like that. It's literally highway robbery, y'all. It's highway robbery. Robber.
Oh my gosh. Baby bumpkins.
And just the frustration.
It was so frustrating.
And I'm not exaggerating. The time frame to fill out those forms was hours. And every time you went back, it didn't save. So you'd have to re-put everything in.
Yeah, it was. They don't make the process easy.
Yep, on purpose.
At all.
Yep.
And so after that experience, I think we did talk about it on the channel.
Yeah, we did the live shows, and it's on one of our live shows when we were in Albany.
COVID happened not long after that. Yay.
Yep.
Yay us. And then when we were in Albany, I spent a lot of time working. So I literally worked almost every day.
And then so when we decided to leave Albany to avoid all of this stuff, we went with the pod.
Yeah. And I think...
and we shipped a car.
That actually went...
smooth.
Awesome. We hired movers to move the stuff out of the apartment into the pod.
Well, we got the pod dropped off. And then we hired the movers to come and do that. And they did that. They were super fast.
Yeah,
2
we
guys.
actually had to find a separate group because the first group just
didn't show. And then called us later like they were going to show. And it's like, it's too late, dude. We gave it to somebody else.
Yeah,
but it was a father and a son. They showed up last minute.
They were awesome.
We literally reached out and we're like, hey, our movers canceled on us last minute. We need to get the stuff out.
Can you help us?
Can you help us? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he's like, he charged us less.
Yep.
He was fantastic. Him and his son were fucking... super fast.
Yeah.
Super fast. They were like the 2 college guys. I mean, they were like, doop, 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 doop. We couldn't even close our eyes and almost all of our stuff was already out of the apartment.
Because honestly, if you're a mover, that's how you make your money.
Yeah.
You got to move
because he's planning on
fast.
going someplace else. And we talk about tips later on, but definitely a sneak peek at a tip is definitely be the first thing during the day and make sure they have other stuff to do so that they move quickly. Otherwise, they'll milk it because they don't have any place else to go.
And their body's going to get tired.
Yeah.
So like the faster you move, the quicker you can get through before you feel tired too.
So the people showed up for the car. Smooth experience.
Yep. And that was kind of weird too because we were kind of holding our breath because it was a little bit like a broker again.
Yes.
So we were just like, okay. But it was just our Ford Explorer. We were like, if something happens to it.
And we put some clothes in there. And that was it. That was all that was in there was a little bit of clothes in the back because they can't guarantee anything you put in your car other than the car getting there, which again really started sending up red flags.
Made it too because the battery was dead when it got there.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The only thing that bad is they left the lights on and clearly just killed the battery, so we had to buy a new battery when it got here. But oh well, that wasn't too bad. At least it got here.
Yeah.
So.
And they delivered it to the hotel we were living at.
Yep.
Because when we got to Las Vegas, we did not want to do the same thing we did for Albany and
Syracuse
and just sign a lease for a place that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
So we decided
it never works out for us
to get a hotel because long-term rates in a hotel are actually cheaper than rent.
Yep.
And so we lived off the Las Vegas Strip for about 2.5 months till we found the right place.
And you can watch a video about that on Lost Girl in Tomorrowland.
And we've been happy where we've been in the same place for 3 years, but obviously that time is slowly coming to an end here. Actually, rapidly coming to an end. We got about a month left, and
And we're probably going to do the pods thing again. That's kind of what we're leaning towards just because we don't trust movers. We don't trust movers. We have no faith in it. And if something happens, there's no recourse. If you're moving within the same state, movers are okay.
Yeah.
So I don't want to shoo everybody because you can still sue them in that state.
Yeah.
The problem is if they move across states, you can't sue them.
Yeah, it becomes way more of an issue. So, And the great thing, and this isn't sponsored at all, but the great thing about pods is it's a sealed container. It goes into a weather controlled warehouse.
Yep. And we've been inside the warehouses. They're massive.
They're huge. The only downside is you really got to make sure you're packing it to be kind of shook around because they are not delicate with those pods.
Yes.
So make sure your stuff is, wrapped in bubble wrap as best you can, or tape or towels if you don't have bubble wrap. You really got to protect your stuff because it does get thrown around like a rag doll.
Yeah. I mean, I lost my bike. It broke the chain on it. We still haven't fixed that yet. But again, that was the worst that happened, and it just got stuck against the door. Mm-hmm. So they had to like rock it to unlock it the first time. Mm-hmm. But other than that, no major issues with them.
Yeah, and then they store it for like up to a month, I think, is included with your rate that you get, and then you can extend it if you need to. And the great thing is too is you can move the pod around to where you are.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have it. We haven't quite decided where we're gonna ship it yet. That's kind of up in the air. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, so we're going to do the pod thing. We'll get people to come help us move what we have. We're literally just taking boxes and this studio.
Yeah, this desk is the biggest piece of furniture I believe we're taking. Yeah, which is this thing right here. If you're watching us on camera, I'm pointing down if you're not.
And our two lovely chairs.
Yeah, but they'll come apart, so they'll just be two smaller pieces.
Which these chairs are awesome too. I love these chairs. These chairs are...
Secret Lab, # not sponsored, but would be if you're interested.
Yeah, if you guys want to sponsor us, we'll feature you in all our videos. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. So that moves us into our next segment.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some things to plan for and people should take into consideration when moving, but don't. But we're going to take a quick little break and we'll be right back with you. Welcome back.
Yeah, so we are going to delve into our top tips and tricks and just like things in general to think about when you're making a move, whether it's local or cross country. So yeah, so we're going to get it started.
So if you're listening to us on our podcast, and you're going to keep listening to us, but if you're listening to us on YouTube, we've had a whole discussion about moving and some of our stories and things to look out for already. So definitely look for us on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcast. Check us out at Awkward Chats. Mm-hmm. But as for the list, let's get to it.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things if you are moving cross country and you want to use movers is 100% don't use a broker. Don't use a broker.
Use a broker.
Because what the broker does is he basically gets your deal for, I don't know, let's say $3,000. And then he has $3,000 to basically work with, and he's going to go with the cheapest of the cheap, which is how our stuff ended up going from one truck to another truck to another truck, which we talk about more earlier in the podcast. So if you guys have been listening, thank you for still being here. But if you guys want to see it, just go back a little bit on the podcast. So don't use a broker because they will sub out to the lowest bidder and your stuff is going to come back ruined. They could take you for highway robbery. It's just not recommended. There are legitimate moving companies out there. They do cost a significant amount of money, but it may be worth it to utilize them. But again, just make sure you're not using a broker. Yeah,
in comparison, that's not really that much more. It is typically more, though. The broker, just a little sort of like short clip, because we've already talked about this at length. Basically, what they do is if, like, say, United is moving someone from like Miami to Atlanta, and they have some open space on their truck, the broker will then buy that space and put your stuff into that space. But if your stuff isn't going to Atlanta, they're going to dump it off in a field somewhere around Atlanta that another truck is going to pick it up on. And they basically have to find another truck going from that Atlanta area to somewhere else closer to you're going to. And it could switch 4 or 5 times on the way there.
Yep.
So that's why brokers are not the way. You need to make sure that whatever company you use has their own trucks, has their own people. And when they load it onto a truck, that truck is going to deliver it to your house. Mm-hmm. Now, the broker that we had said that was going to happen, and that was a blatant lie. So just know they will lie to you. But that is something that you really should try to look forward and ask for if you are moving, especially across state lines.
And I do think legally they have to tell you if they're a broker or not.
Yes.
So that is a question to ask, which I did not know to ask at the time, but that is a question to start your conversation off with, is to ask them, are you a broker?
Yep.
So that can get you through a lot.
Yeah.
The other thing is one, like know your rights. And what we mean by know your rights is know your contract that you're getting into. And then two, know the rights that you have as somebody who is paying someone to move your goods, whether it's within a state, you have more rights versus interstate, which is crossing state lines and going into another state. And there you don't necessarily lose your rights, but it becomes harder to enforce your rights.
You lose them. Yeah, you lose them. Because then there has to be a compromise between the states. So like if you're in California, you have more laws protecting you. But if they move you to Nevada from California, you have neither of those laws. You don't have Nevada's laws or California's. It goes to the federal level, which is even less.
So consider that when you're going into it, and definitely read through your contract. And while we knew what our contract said and what was allowed, we still got bit in the ass. But knowing what we know now, looking back on it, I think we would have done things differently.
Yes. I think that's a big thing. And another piece that sort of goes along with that contract is find out how much they're going to reimburse you for the stuff. Are they going to reimburse you for your actual stuff? Or are they going to reimburse you by weight? If they're going to be reimbursing you by weight, you need to find another moving company, because that means they destroy a ton of stuff and they don't want to pay. So what it means by weight is basically like if I destroy your $3,000 Cartier watch, right, in this move, you're entitled to about 62 cents, because it's going to be way less than a pound. And it's typically about 60 cents a pound is what they'll give you. So imagine all that jewelry and stuff is going to weigh maybe 2 pounds. You might get $1.20 back from them.
Yep.
And you're going to be like, well, I wouldn't ship my Cartier watch with a mover. Then how are you going to get it there? Like, we have the same idea, but you can't take everything. That's why you have to hire a mover. If they're not going to do it, what's the point of hiring them?
Now, they will also try to upsell you on insurance that protects more of you. But from all the research I've done, that is mostly a scam.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah, you have to get a third-party insurance. But again, if they aren't offering you anything, you shouldn't be using them. That's,
correct.
Again, a huge red flag.
So next tip I would say is...
Two. So another thing to think about is if the terms of the contract change.
Yeah, if the terms of the contract change at any point, you should just stop.
Yes.
Pause. Possibly seek legal counsel at that point. Because if you continue to proceed, it's not going to get better.
Yeah.
It's probably going to get worse.
So a short from our story that if you're listening on the podcast, you've already heard, but for the YouTube viewers that are seeing this as a preview, basically what happened is one of the things that happened to us was the contract we signed said that they would take credit cards. Then they called the next day to get the payment, and they no longer took credit cards. They just wanted money orders.
Even though the contract specifically stated that they would. We went through a whole lot of rigmarole. They finally admitted that, yes, it was there, but they weren't going to honor it.
Yes.
And at that point, looking back, this is why I say I would have done things differently, is I would have put a stop to it, and I probably would have sought legal counsel at that point, because it hadn't left the state yet. According to the moving company, it was in Miami. And we probably would have been able to get our money back and get our stuff back without having to fork over as much money as we did and end up in the situation that we did.
Right.
And maybe have salvaged some furniture.
So be cautious again. If you're moving, the terms change. Be super cautious about that. And this applies to local moves as well as interstate moves. But if they're interstate, you need to be overly cautious, because again, once you leave a state, you lose all protections from that state.
And they can hold your stuff for ransom like pirates. And they
do.
will.
And they do. And they use that too. They use that to their advantage.
Which brings us into our next point, which is fear. Like, you really, don't let them walk all over you and push you into a corner and be fearful, because you have more power in the beginning, and that's usually where the red flags are going to pop up, is in the beginning, and they will hold your stuff for ransom and make you feel like you are helpless and useless and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, something to look out for too. When we talk about lying, if you talk to them on the phone, you ask if they're a broker, ask who's going to come to pick up the stuff, get the name of the company. If they show up and you hire a company like we did called Roadrunner, and they show up with a different moving company van, you need to stop it right there, because they're a broker. You need to stop it right there. they lied to you, you need to stop it right there. Don't proceed further. Don't listen to anything. They'll be like, oh, our truck was down or something was damaged. That's what they told us, which was a lie. It was just a blatant lie to get your stuff. And once they have your stuff, they like to hold it hostage. So that's where you need to be upfront and make sure that you trust yourself and not be afraid to stop them.
And they'll try to be fake nice, and they'll try to be like, well, we're going to work with you here.
Yeah. It's always we're going to look at it.
Same thing with the whole like, oh, well, this is going to be more space than what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that
it's
is
a
something.
common thing
Yes.
with brokers.
Yes, with brokers, 100%. Every story that we read post, as well as some of the pre ones, is they'll always quote you a size, and it's always going to be over.
Mm-hmm.
So your best bet with that is, again, don't use brokers. That's your best bet. But if you have to use a broker, try not to leave the state. So at least you have some recourse. If you can't do that, then you have to put it on a credit card, because otherwise you're not going to get any money when they damage your stuff. You need to accept that ahead of time. But if you want to get at least what you paid them back, you need to do it on a credit card so you can do that.
Yep.
The next tip is sort of a more positive tip towards moving companies. We're sorry we're hating on you a little bit today, but we've seen what some horrible moving companies do and take advantage of you. Hire movers to move stuff in and out of your trucks. So even if you rent like a budget truck or a U-Haul, hire movers to get the boxes out of your house and into the truck, and then out of the truck and into your new place.
It's worth it. And it usually doesn't cost more than a couple $100 with typically. And more often than not, we have had people who rise to the occasion and do a great job. They always do a good job. Sometimes they take longer.
Well, we had one in Orlando that broke a bunch of stuff and dropped it outside. So it can't happen. The sub tips to that are schedule them early in the day. Make sure you're their first appointment. Check to see if they have anything afterwards, because if they do, that means they're going to be extra quick because they want to get to the other place. If they don't have anything or they schedule at the end of the day, try to get a different date, because then they're just going to milk it for money. They don't have anywhere else to go. They have an open end of their day, and they're just going to try to make as much money off of you as possible.
So, and also too, ask if they're going to bring the stuff to wrap your furniture and stuff, because that also can tell you if they're a professional mover or not, because they should bring blankets and they should bring stuff to wrap your stuff.
Yeah, and plastic wrap is a savior.
Especially if it's a local move. If it's a long distance move and they're just packing it to for you to take it somewhere to another state, they may not include blankets, but they should include the plastic wrap to kind of keep your drawers together and stuff like that.
And if they're professionals, they'll ask you, do you have blankets or whatever that I can add on to this? If they don't ask you that, again,
probably not a professional.
Yeah. The bonus tip that I just kind of wanted to add to this is trust your gut.
Yeah.
Trust your feelings. If you feel like something's off, stop it immediately.
That's been our biggest thing, I think, in life, learning as an adult, like learning to adult, just in general, is us trusting our gut. Because we always want to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe I'm looking too much into this. Maybe it's not as bad as it seems. But more often than not, it's exactly what we thought it was going to be.
Yep, exactly.
So trust your gut.
We knew when he came to pick up the stuff and he didn't accept payment that day.
That it was going to be
We knew
bad.
something was off, but we're like, nah, it'll probably work out. I'm sure they're just going to call us tomorrow and we'll pay them. But deep down, we talked about it after they left too. And even before they left, we're like, are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
Like, do you sure you want to let them have our stuff?
Like, should we just call them and have them bring it back?
Yeah. Or not even let them go because he was still there.
Like, we'll figure it out.
Yep.
Like, we can still figure it out at this point. Like, because even when they were, like, we were literally sitting on the couch and they were like, we can't take this. We looked at each other and like, okay, well, do we want to just tell them to take it all off the truck?
Well, and one of the huge red flags, by the way, looking back at it, we didn't really catch it in the moment, and we probably should have, is that the tip for the first guy who picked it up, he wanted us to tip him through like an app because we didn't have enough cash. So we're like, oh, we'll just tip when we pay on the credit card. Oh no, you can tip me like this. And he had an app, so he could accept a tip, but he couldn't accept the payment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just go with
Again,
your gut.
trust your gut. Had we trusted our gut,
go
we
with
wouldn't
your
have fallen in
gut.
that situation.
And we learn these life lessons, and hopefully you don't have to go through the same thing. Hopefully, while I never wish bad on me or anybody else, hopefully our experience can help somebody in the future not make the same mistake, or at least help them navigate if they're stuck in a situation.
And to remember too, give yourself extra time. Like, don't make it so that everything is last minute. Like the movers are coming the day you leave, because if that happens and then they'll try to pressure you into things, you don't have as much push room. You can't be like, just leave, I'll hire somebody else, because they're the only people you're going to be able to get. So like, there's a lot of things that if you have extra time, you make sure to plan out ahead, you trust your guts, hopefully you'll get a good scenario. And if you have, let us know in those comments below. We'd love to hear about your positives, because we've had so many bad ones and so few good ones.
Yeah. So like this move that's coming up, honestly, once we get the rest of our boxes packed and our suitcase packed with what clothes we're going to take, I can literally have the pod people come.
We're going to do that, yeah. And they're just going to take it. And they're probably like a week ahead of time. Then we can clean the place out and then be ready to go.
Because we're not taking the mattress. So,
Yep.
And we're just planning on wrapping that up and putting it by the curb.
Yep.
And the bed frame, I'll probably throw on the curb too, because it's just a bunch of metal bracks.
Yeah.
So yeah, just give yourself enough time so you can feel like you've got enough time to prepare and plan. And the other thing too, what's nice about doing it like a week ahead is like, okay, so if we run out of space, I have enough time to get a bigger pod if I need to.
Yep.
Or I can repack some things and make some adjustments and figure some stuff out, because you never really realize how much stuff you have in your house until you start taking it out.
Yep, exactly. And putting it somewhere else.
And you're like, where did this come from?
Yep.
You start opening drawers and you're like, where did this come from? So yeah, so just be prepared. Give yourself time. Be patient.
Prepared.
Be kind to yourself too, because moving is stressful.
Yes.
Whether you're moving across town or across country, it's stressful, and you need to give yourself the patience to navigate it. And it's interesting, TikTok today was talking about a lot of match day people who are, you know, physicians getting out of medical school matching. And the biggest thing I hear is people talking about how they're going to move to a city they've never been to before, that they know nobody in, to do their residency. And they're like, it's scary. And I just sit back and I think, I'm like, yeah, it's scary, but you can do it.
Yeah, we've done it 3 times.
We've done it a lot, and it's always a little scary and nerve-wracking going to a place you don't know anything about. But the best thing to remember is that it's just a city. It's just a city, just different people, different streets, and you'll learn your way around. You'll get a groove. You'll get a thing. And if you give yourself patience and time, it should be a rather smooth move.
Yeah, so that's all for this week's Awkward Chat and for the YouTube preview.
Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with us. I know I did.
And if you like this content, make sure to give it a thumbs up.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And ring that notification bell so you get notified of at least 3 videos a week.
And we'll come and get you guys for the next one.
Ain't that the truth, baby Ruth? And to all you beautiful people on the podcast listen to us, we appreciate your love.
Yeah.
Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.